my last assignment, sisters and brothers, my last assignment before I got here, I was assigned a little bit in Smithville. Very little of my work was in Smithville, a Good Shepherd parish, but most of my work, and usually my daily mass was in the Church of the Annunciation in Kearney. And most of my 2 years there was right in the depths of COVID-19. You may have heard of this, huh? And one day, this is one daily communicant. It was a pretty regular gentleman who would come to Mass every day. He came to Mass even though he wasn't feeling well that day. And lo and behold, he went to the doctor later that day, and you guessed it, huh? He got diagnosed with COVID. And it was early enough in the pandemic, the health department, I got a call from the health department, and they gave him communion that day, you see. I had to be quarantined for 14 days. Oh, sisters and brothers, less fun than it sounds like. It was cooped up, we had to go find mass coverage for the weekend. It was a mess, huh? And of course, the isolation was always a challenge. As any of you who have spent any of the pandemic finding yourself in quarantine know full well, sisters and brothers, how difficult that was. That isolation, being separated from friends and loved ones, and from work and leisure time. But of course, my sisters and brothers, that's A, nothing new, and B, nothing like what the old law prescribed. We hear this, right, in the book of Leviticus. If anybody had a sore on the skin, a pustule, I don't get to use that word a lot, right? He had to keep himself quarantined, away, tearing his clothes, messing up his beard, shouting out, unclean, 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 lest anybody catch that terrible disease. Scholars disagree about whether the leprosy that the people in the desert at the time of Moses experienced, or even the leprosy that the people in the time of Jesus' earthly ministry experienced, the same as the leprosy we see now, very rare. But in any case, very serious, and I believe still incurable. And of course, folks obeyed the law even though they had this terrible affliction. Obeyed the law because they recognized that God gave them the law for their own good, and B, as difficult as it was, they had a responsibility to the other people. We hear that the person who was experiencing this illness needed to dwell apart and make his abode outside the camp. And yet, hear how such a person, such a leper, came to Jesus, kneeling down, begging him, and saying, "If you wish, you can make me clean." And of course, you go to the end of that story too. Because moved with pity, Jesus stretched out his hand, touched him, and said to him, "I do will it. I do will it. Be made clean." Oh, my sisters and brothers, we can also often feel isolated, not just by quarantine, but certainly in our physical illness, our emotional illness, our spiritual illness, keeps us separated from one another. And even in that illness that keeps us separated, sisters and brothers, we have an opportunity to go to Jesus, to kneel down before Jesus, to bow before Jesus, and and tell him, if you wish it, you can make me clean. Confident, sisters and brothers, we know the answer. Confident that as we listen, he says to us, I do will it. Be made clean. Jesus reaches out and touches us in many ways, certainly, sisters and brothers, but especially in the sacraments. As we approach baptism, he makes us clean. When we submit ourselves to confession, to the great sacrament of reconciliation, he makes us clean. Sorry. When we approach this holy altar, receiving his body, blood, soul, and divinity, he makes us clean. You know, sisters and brothers, I don't get to do this often, but just yesterday, I got to offer someone viaticum. Right, viaticum is the last time someone receives the Holy Eucharist. Viaticum, we get that from the Latin word via, meaning road or way. Viaticum, so food for the journey. And so often, my sisters and brothers, so often by the time the ministerial priests get called, it's too late. Right? They can't swallow anymore. They're not conscious anymore. They may be intubated. And will not consciously receive that food for the journey. And how important is that, sisters and brothers? That food for the journey. That allowing Jesus to touch them, to touch us, and make us clean. You know, sisters and brothers, Holy Mother Church today, if it were not Sunday, it would be the memorial of Our Lady of Lourdes. And of course, we all know that after Our Lady's apparition in Lourdes in France, how the waters there bring healing to many who were considered lost causes. And how Jesus, through the agency, through the ministry of his mother, touches people, makes them clean. But precisely because of that, sisters and brothers, Holy Mother Church celebrates this. Today is the 32nd World Day of the Sick. And in his message for the World Day of the Sick, Pope Francis teaches that with the love for one another that Christ the Lord bestows on us in prayer, especially in the Eucharist, let us tend the wounds of solitude and isolation. Oh, sisters and brothers, today, this week, particularly as we get ready for Ash Wednesday, let us come to Jesus, kneeling before Jesus, bowing before Jesus, begging him to touch us, and if he wills, make us clean, knowing full well that he does will it, that he will make us clean, so that being made clean, being made whole, we can, in whatever we do everything for the glory of God, and that we can be glad in the Lord and rejoice, and we can exult the upright heart. Praised be Jesus Christ, now and forever.